Matt. Oh,
Um,
don't worry about it.
yeah, no, he's barking at something. So with the storyline, I don't know how much you've worked with storyline files, but this is basically a zip file, right?
Yeah.
So if I, click on it, I can unzip it to a folder with the same name as the storyline file. And then if I open up that zip file, you can see all the parts of the actual storyline file. Um, and here is, I think you have the storyline tab in your DTP worksheet that
Yeah.
you
I don't know
have,
how
right?
outdated it is, but yeah, we have it in some of them.
Okay. Okay. And I'll email you a new copy of this DTP spreadsheet because I think the one I have is a little bit updated because we've changed some information that's included here internally.
Right.
Um, so I'll create a folder with the same name as the storyline file, but without the story extension. Drop it in there. Um, for slide count, what I do is look in this. Once I unzip the storyline file, I'll look in the story rels. Oops. No, I'll look
Slides.
slides rels folder, and this will give me. I see 64 items. There's one XML file for each slide, so I know there's 64 slides in here. So that's where this number comes from.
All right.
Um, Once I do that, I can get rid of all these folders. And then I create different subfolders for the different types of assets that might be included. So I'll create a folder for audio. And if there's audio files, I'll extract them from the storyline file and put them in the audio folder. Same with images. Same with video. Same with closed captioning. They're VTT files, so I'll create a VTT folder. There might be screen captures. I'll create a pub folder, and I usually publish a version of the course to run locally and put it in the pub folder.
An
I,
HTML
and I
type.
right, right. I'll create a notes folder, and um, so from Storyline, you have a couple different ways to publish everything, right? So what I usually do is I need to create three different published versions for every course that I look at. One is a Review 360 link, and once I generate that, I will put the URL here in the DTP spreadsheet so people can review it online. Because once I'm done preparing stuff, a project manager will go through the course to come up with validation times. I will create an export for LMS, and that's what I put in this pub folder. And I'll export a Word file here, and that's what I'll put in this notes folder.
Okay.
Um, when
The Word file is the one that will be translated. Do you use that property?
um, no, this is just a published version to Word. The project managers sometimes use this to create the script file for voiceover if they need to, and really you know, what they're looking for in that word export is this text on the note slide, because a lot of times this matches the voiceover.
Yeah.
So if they need to create the script for the voiceover partner, they look at that published Word file and start to create the voiceover script from there.
Got it.
Then for the translation, you can export
Yeah.
to an XLIF or to a Word file. The project managers have asked that I export both, because we usually try to use the XLIF file to translate, but there are some cases where we need to use the Word file to export or to translate. And a lot of times the project manager might have questions about where a segment appears for translation, and it's easier for them to look in this Word export for translation and find it than it is in the XLIF file. The XLIF file is just a little harder to look through. So I export both XLIF and Word files, and I put them right in the root of this folder, with the storyline file.
Correct.
So I'm kind of halfway through preparing this right now. So what I'm going to do is finish preparing everything. But if you want, I can send you this storyline file, and you can quote on it and see, if they approve this, you'll get the work for it.
Okay.
But this is basically how I come up with the times, and you'll see it in the DTP spreadsheet you have. The number of graphics, the number of screen captures, the number of video sync points. When I look at this, like here's one sync point here, right? Once this audio switches, the position in the timeline for when this stops and starts is going to have to change to match the new audio. So this is,
That's one.
Here's
one sync point
here's
for all.
Yeah,
four layers there.
Right. Yeah. So here's 1, here's 2, and it looks like that's all on this slide. Here's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So, usually what I do when I look through a course is just go through slide by slide and, count all these up as I go through. And that's the number that you see here. For this file in particular, I don't see any closed captioning attached to these audio files. So, I don't, but that could also be a consideration. The VTT files might need to be, the timing on them might need to be cleaned up once they come back translated and they're swapped out in the storyline file.
How about SRA?
And-
What is that stands for?
Yeah.
Column
Yeah.
F. What is SRA?
As screen recording actions.
Right. Like animation.
And that's if you, where's it at? Let me find it. It's here somewhere. Oh, they must have changed it. So it's still got to be in here somewhere, but they changed where they put it. Uh, so there used to be a little button here somewhere that lets you um, record what was going on your screen, and it would capture video of the screen, and it would capture your mouse movements, and it was just a way for someone to put together if they were trying to do an e-learning on software training for a specific software. It would record your screen, and it would record your mouse movements and the clicks, and you could kind of present walking through steps in whatever software you were trying to teach. And those were a huge pain in the butt to localize. So whenever I ran across one of those that were included in a storyline file, I would always assume that they stayed in English. So that's really there just to cover, my butt and whoever's doing the DTP work. So the account executives know that there's some screen recording actions in here, and they're going to stay in English.
All right.
It doesn't come up very often, but when it comes up, it's potentially a huge amount of work to actually localize those. So I just include that
But it's not
to
going
set.
against the total time of the TP unless they can provide it. So the
Well, that's not really something that they can provide. It's something we have localized them before, and what we had to do was it was for Chinese. And what we had to do was set up a Chinese native speaker with a storyline license, and they actually had to go through and follow the exact same steps they did in the English to record the screen, but with a Chinese version of the software. So it was very time consuming. Um, so we usually will leave those, always assume that those will stay in English. But this is included in the DTP spreadsheet
so
just
they can manage
so
those.
the account executive is aware, and they at the quote stage they can go back to the client and say, hey, we noticed that there's some screen recording actions included in the storyline file, and they are going to stay in English unless you tell us otherwise. And if the client really wanted them, then we would go back and try to estimate the effort to do that. But out of the box, always assume that they would stay in English, just like screen captures from software. The only other thing that I sometimes find is they sometimes will have external files linked within the storyline course. Within storyline, come on.
After completing this module, you will describe the
So here they have this little resources thing that you can activate, and there's like a PDF, and this looks like a URL. When you publish this file locally, let me see if I can find an example. So this is an example of a published course. In the story content folder, there's an external files folder, and these are the actual resources where the actual, like if it was a PDF or a doc file or something that was linked in that resources menu, it would show up here. Yeah. So when I publish the course, I look for this external files folder, and I'll copy those PDFs over to this external files folder. And then what I'll end up with is a couple different DTP times. There'll be the DTP times for the actual storyline work. And then, there's going to be additional DTP times on this doc tab to work with those resource files.
And needs to be prepped as well.
And it's what?
Needs to be prepared for translation as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Normal
Yeah.
translation.
For this, sometimes the client sends the source file for these, sometimes they don't. But at least looking for them, when we quote stuff like this, we at least know they're there, and we can tell the client, hey, we noticed that there's some external resources linked in this course, and we assume that you would want them translated. Can we get the source files? And if we don't have the source files, I'll just export a Word file from this PDF just so we can get word counts and estimate as best I can from the PDF what the DTP time would be, to assuming that we get the source files for it.
Got it.
And sometimes they're not that bad.
How
I
about
think this one is.
The images you go through one of each of them to see if there's localizable content, right?
Right. Yeah. What I do is I look at the media library, and this will show me a list of all the images that are used in the course. And I'll just go through these. Okay, this has 5 traits of EQ. That will need to be translated. So I'll export that and put it in, this images folder here. And you can see, where's my working directory here? I'm starting to go through this now, and there were 16 total localizable images that I found used here. So, that probably should be translated. This should be translated. And I do the same thing for each of the tab. Characters I don't have to really worry about, but for the audio, I can see all the audio here. I can just select all of it and export it.
Do you need to
The
provide
only
the
thing I
links
watch out
of for the account executive or PM to contact resources? Do you need to list the amount of time per audio? They do it on their own.
No. What my times include is the amount of time it will take to replace the audio in the storyline file and to resync any events on the timeline that will change to match the localized audio. So that's the sync points. We have a couple different vendors that actually do the audio recording. So there's a bunch of stuff that happens once I'm done preparing stuff. Once I'm done, I'll let the account executive know, DTP times and prepared files are ready. They'll go into my analysis and look for, okay, there's 71 audio files, there's 2 video files, and they'll contact a vendor to get an estimate for the video work. They'll contact another vendor to get an estimate for the audio recording. is how we handle that internally. So that's why this structure is kind of important, because this is what everybody's used to working with, and the account executive is going to go, oh, there's videos. They're going to look for this video folder, and they're going to see exactly what they need to get a quote on. Same for the audio. They're going to see that there's audio involved. They'll go into this audio file, and they have what they need to move the quote along.
You don't list timings.
No,
Okay.
no, I
Do
don't.
it on there.
Well, they usually, I think what they usually do is I'll just select everything, go to properties, and in details it says,
so
okay, there's 28 minutes 57 seconds of audio here, and that's kind of how they start. But then they do take those audio files and send them to the audio vendor, the voiceover partner, to verify. The only thing that I sometimes run into a lot when I'm looking at audio files especially is that they're really named, poorly. And a lot of times they're named like recording 1, recording 2, recording 3. And there might be multiple audio files with the same name. So sometimes as I'm preparing these, I need to go through and rename the audio files just so we don't end up with 3 different MP3 files with the same name, because we're not going to know where they go back once the audio is localized, right?
Yeah.
So I'll sometimes have to rename these, and I do. It's usually, so I can see this audio file in particular is used on slide 6.1. So I would rename this 06.01 if I needed to, like that, just so it's easier to put everything together once the translations come back.
All right.
Let me get some stuff together, and I'll send you this file to quote on. And I'm not sure how likely this is to get approved. We've done some work for them in the past, so I think it's probably a little bit better than average.
Okay.
But you can take a look at it.
Yeah, but don't take it as a commitment or anything.
Do
It
an
will be
analysis for it.
it will be a good exercise for us to analyze and get everything. So whenever, I don't know, the opportunity arises, we're better on a better page.
Yeah. No, and it's
If it
good.
comes out to be a project, perfect. And if we can work as a backup for you, well, even better.
Yeah, for sure. And it would be good too, even if because these are so involved. The quotes usually take a long time to produce, just because there's so many things to go through and prepare. Keep track of your time too, because that's include that in your DTP analysis, or even if I'm out of the office and someone needs a quote for some storyline work and they send it to you, if you look at it, let them know what the time was that you spent on the quote, because I think would probably pay you for the prep work and the analysis and stuff like that.
Do you have a ballpark figure here, like for this project in particular? Like how long are you sitting analyzing this? A couple of hours, between 2 and 4 hours, or something like that?
For this one, there wasn't too much prep work that I had to do. So I think it'll probably just be a couple hours. But I just did a quote yesterday for another storyline file here. And I'm in the middle of it. There was, I think I spent probably about 5 or 6 hours total quoting it, only because there were a lot of audio files that needed to be renamed, and there were VTT files. So, the VTT files had to be renamed to match the audio files. So there was a lot of manual stuff that I had to do to go through, and we'll have to finish just to produce the quote.
Yeah.
So it really depends. Sometimes it's as little as like an hour or two. Sometimes it's 6 or 8 hours for one course just to go through and prepare everything, because there's so much. There's the 3 different versions you have to publish. There's looking through for graphics and screen captures and renaming audio files, and it's sometimes it's a lot. So it's kind of a wider range than like a doc file or an InDesign file.
Yeah. I just wanted to have a ballpark figure. That was all. Just an idea. I'll let you know how we do it. Whenever you have it ready, and send it over, and we'll process it and see
Okay.
what difference we arrived to, and how we fell short, or what we established as, whatever difference they can.
Okay.
Huh?
I'll tell you what, since I'm almost done looking at this, what I'll do is I'll send you the final DTP times that I quote, and you can take a look at them and see if you disagree or agree, or with these I usually try to have the vendor quote them, because there are I think there's more of a chance to have a big difference in the DTP times that I would quote than maybe someone else would. So I usually try to get, I'll try to prepare everything internally here, but I will ask the DTP vendor, what they want to charge for the DTP times usually.
All right. How about VTT? I don't see it listed here. Does that impact your quote, or
It
information for the PM?
What I might do for VTT is, here, let me open this up a little more. Just like with the doc worksheet, I have these are my starting point metrics up here. And if I noticed, okay, so for this, I'm saying it's going to be about 2 minutes, or about 5 minutes for each sync point that I find. If there were VTT files, and I might change that a little bit and say maybe 7 or 8 minutes, just to cover the time for cleaning up the closed captioning once it's translated. One thing you'll see here is that internally, the way we do storyline files is a lot like we do Articulate Rise courses, right? Part 1 is translating and formatting the on-screen text, and then that gets reviewed and any changes are applied. Step 2 is then any audio or video work. So these are kind of broken up into 2 distinct phases for the project managers here, and that's why these times are broken out the way they are in the DTP spreadsheet. So the PM can look at this and say, okay, for the first phase of the project, when we're translating and formatting the on-screen text, it's going to be 14.67 hours. once the audio is recorded, it's going to be another 2.5 hours to insert the audio and resync everything on the timeline. So if there were VTT files and I wanted to account for a little extra time, I would just bump this up, say, okay, let's say 10 minutes. Whoops. I would add the time actually here for probably per audio file. Well, there's no sync points here, but if there was, it would bump up. So I could add. I might bump this up to 10 minutes, and then the audio sync time would go up, and then that would be the cue for the project manager to know, okay, on phase the second half of this project, when we work with the localized audio and video, we're going to need 4 hours to do it. So that helps with scheduling a little bit.
Got it. Pretty straightforward. Yep, it's pretty straightforward procedure.
Okay, good.
Send it over whenever you want, and we'll evaluate and note and comment.
Okay. All right. Great.
Okay. Thank you very much, Larry.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks,
If
Ala.
there's anything else, just let me know.
I will. And I think I remember Nicholas just saying too. A lot of the stuff that we've been working on lately, and especially for you guys, is with the SEIU. Mm-hmm. And I think they ran out of budget until the beginning of next month, I think Nicholas said. So so that's, everybody slowed down a little bit with that, because we have the vendor that we use for theirs. They have a lot of storyline stuff, and the vendor that we use is in Czech Republic for them. And I think they asked the same question too. It's like, hey, where's is what's going on? Is it slowed down there or what? So that kind of has trickled down to everybody a little bit, but it'll pick up again, I'm sure.
Yeah, totally. But this is the short-term focus of this, and just check up on it. But on a medium and longer term, we would like to diversify more in whatever we can provide Interpro with, and we can start preparing ourselves for if I need to contact another specialist and start working with another specialist. Is much better that they know the procedure that we have in place, even though Gabo is very savvy on this. Sometimes his plate's a little bit full. Julia and myself, we chip in, of course. We all know about it. So it's just a matter of restructuring. So far for Interpro, we have 3 main DTPs and 2 that used to do QA, and now we changed the procedure. All we're doing is we're calling it the DTPA, so it's the bulk of the DTP is done with these 3 persons, and instead of going to QAing PDFs and coming back, we have been trying for the last 10 days to do a DTPA, and then the people that used to be QA, there's 2 people there, so it's 5 in total so far. They introduced the modifications they seem fit, and feedback to the DTPA. This reduced our steps by 1, and then Gabo, when he prepares finals, even before finals, after linguistic QA has been applied, but before sending it for DTP1, he checks the files as well. If there's feedback, he will go back to DTPB and DTPA. So we are, streamlining this process and see if we can improve our optimization, and because we've also noticed deadlines are a little bit tighter than they used to be. So which still is not
Uh-huh.
the industry deadlines. I mean, you guys have good PMing, so there's enough time.
Yeah, yeah, and I think there's usually a little bit. I think sometimes the project managers just try to push just to deliver earlier, even if they have a little more time. So if you're not comfortable with something, I'm sure there's usually a little bit of room to go back and say, hey, we can't get this done by Wednesday, but we'll get it to you by Friday or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
our doors are open always with the PMs. They know we do what we can, and
Yeah.
then otherwise we let them know in advance. So far, it's been
Yeah.
working fine. I mean, I do have some of the numbers. We've been tracking this weekly, how much we're failing on our deadlines, and it's under 3%, so it's pretty good. I need to compile
well,
some.
yeah, it's very good, and I will tell you that whenever any partner, it could be a DTP partner or a linguistic partner, comes back and asks for a deadline extension, we track that, and the amount of deadline extensions that DTP vendors ask for is practically nothing compared to all the linguistic partners.
Yeah,
They come back almost every job and say, "Hey, we need more time." So,
yeah. Sometimes you see
no,
that.
that's it's yeah, it's no everybody. You guys do great, so don't worry about that.
Yeah, but it's still there's room for improvement, and we would like to address
Yeah,
that as well. So
yeah,
we're
yeah. I
partners.
appreciate that.
So yeah.
Yep, yep.
Okay. Okay.
All right,
Thank you
excellent.
very much for this, and I'll be expecting your files and requests. Once again, no
Okay, sounds
commitment,
good.
but we want to be available and ready for, and if there is an opportunity, you know.
Yeah, and this is a if you want to diversify, this would be a good thing to start with because we actually do have quite a bit of e-learning work. Um, so it would definitely you'd end up with more work from us doing this. So
Sounds great. Perfecto.
okay,
Okay,
awesome.
Larry.
Thanks,
Whatever
Alan.
you think extra, just let me know. I'm here.
Okay, I will.
Cheers. Have a great day, man.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.